What if learning English grammar wasn't, just about memorizing arbitrary rules?
Oh, that would be a dream for so many people. Because we all know that standard routine, right?
Right, you're a beginner, you get handed this massive, heavy textbook, maybe a huge list of exceptions to memorize.
And the teacher just points at a whiteboard and says, well, that's just the way it is. Just memorize it.
Yeah, just flashcards for days. It's so frustrating for anyone trying to learn, honestly.
It really is. I mean, it feels completely disconnected from how we actually think and process the world. It basically treats language like a museum exhibit you just have to stare at rather than an actual tool you can use.
Exactly. But what if constructing a sentence was actually exactly like wiring up a simple, clean circuit board?
That is such a better way to look at it.
I totally agree. And today we are pulling from some absolutely fascinating source material that completely reimagines what traditional textbooks boringly call linking verbs.
Ugh, even just the phrase linking verbs sounds tedious.
It does. But this deep dive is tailored specifically for you English beginners out there. Though, I mean, honestly, even advanced speakers are going to look at their own language completely differently by the time we're done here.
Oh, absolutely. Because the sources offer this brilliant rebrand. They don't use the term linking verbs at all.
No, they don't.
Instead, they call them logical connection lines.
Logical connection lines. I love that.
Right. And if you adopt this engineering mindset, you can instantly, debug all those messy tangle sentences you've been struggling to put together.
So to set the stage for you, we have to establish a core distinction first. Imagine your sentence is just a blank circuit board.
Okay, a blank motherboard.
Yeah, a motherboard. And on this board, you have two very different types of components you can plug in. First, you have your action chips.
Right, the action chips.
And these are verbs that actually do something, They output kinetic energy into the real world. Think of actions like running, jumping, building, writing.
Those are pretty straightforward, right?
Mm,
Action chips handle what a subject actively does.
exactly.
But beginners run into a lot of trouble because they mix those up with our second component, which are the connection lines.
And this is where it gets interesting, because a connection line doesn't output any energy at all.
Nothing. It doesn't do a single thing.
Right. Its only job is to connect two pieces of data together. It basically handles what a subject is or maybe how it feels.
So before we can build these complex dynamic sentences, we really need to lay down the absolute baseline wiring of the whole English language mainboard.
The purest connection line there is.
Yes. In traditional grammar, these are the be verbs. Am, is, are, was, were.
The dreaded be verbs.
The dreaded be verbs, right?
Yeah.
But the sources urge us to strip away the mystery here. We need to stop looking at them as these magical grammar words that just change form for no apparent reason.
Yeah, because if you look at them through this new tech lens, a be verb is simply an assignment operator. It's a literal equal sign.
Just a straight wire connecting point A to point B.
So if I say to you, I am a teacher, I'm not performing an action. There is zero kinetic energy there.
Right, you're not actively teaching in that exact moment.
Exactly. The underlying logic is just I equals teacher. It's a simple, perfect equation.
Or if you say the system is stable, the wiring is simply system equals stable.
The data on both sides of that wire just perfectly balances out.
And because it is this pure zero resistance equal sign, the data types you can plug into the end of that sentence are incredibly flexible.
Oh, right, because you can plug in a noun to define an identity, like in your teacher example.
Yep. Or you can plug in an adjective to describe a characteristic, like the word stable.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I've talked to a lot of people who are learning English, and the be verb is where so many early mistakes happen.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah, so if it's just a simple equal sign, what is the most common bug or system crash that beginners experience when using it?
Well, it usually comes down to crossing the wires. You get current leakage, basically.
Current leakage.
Yeah, it happens when a learner mixes that static equal sign directly with an active action chip in the exact same core slot.
Oh, okay. Like when someone says, I am release the code, or I am go to the store.
Exactly that. Think about what is happening in a native listener's brain when you say, I release the code.
It kind of glitches, right?
Totally glitches. You are trying to draw a static equal sign with the word am. But then in the very next breath, you're trying to execute a CPU action with the word release.
And you just can't be an equal sign and an action at the exact same time.
No, you're splitting the listener's brain in two completely different directions. Because when they hear I am, Their brain physically prepares for a description.
They're waiting for a noun or an adjective.
Right, they're waiting for that equal sign to resolve.
Right.
But when you drop the action verb release right on top of it, it's like throwing a wrench into a spinning hard drive.
Yeah.
It crashes the system.
Because it confuses the whole message. Like,
No.
Is it I equals code? Which makes no sense. A person obviously isn't code. Or is it I execute the action of releasing?
Exactly. So the fix is actually super easy.
Mhm.
Since the action release is the actual point of the sentence, you just have to completely uninstall the equal sign wire.
So the clean, debugged sentence is simply, I release the code.
Just pop out the M. It's a foundational rule. When a be verb isn't acting as a helper for another tense, like, I am running, it is purely an equal sign.
So if you have an action happening, you just don't need the equal sign.
Exactly. If you master that one behavior, you will immediately stop crossing the wires in your everyday conversations.
Okay, so the equal sign works perfectly for stating simple facts. I am a teacher. The sky is blue.
The baseline stuff.
Right. But the real world isn't a static spreadsheet,
What?
We walk around, we perceive things, we interact with our environment. How does our sentence wiring handle all that telemetry and sensory data from the outside world?
Well, that requires a specialized set of cables. Our sources call these the sensor wires.
Sensor wires, okay.
Yeah, because language basically exists to map how we perceive the universe around us, right? And human beings come equipped with human hardware. We have 5 physical sensors to do that.
Our 5 senses, so eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin.
Exactly. And in this English framework, these physical sensors map perfectly to 5 specific sensor wires. Look, sound, smell, taste, and feel.
Okay, wait, let me stop you there for a second.
Sure.
Because I can see why a beginner would be totally confused by this. Doesn't the word look mean to actively see something? Like if I look at a bird, my eyes are moving, I'm focusing, that is an action. How is look just a connection line?
See, that is the exact intersection where so many English learners get stuck. It's such a natural question.
Right, because it feels kinetic.
It does. But the key is that these 5 words, look, sound, smell, taste, feel, they operate in 2 entirely different modes. They are dual mode chip.
Oh, dual mode, meaning they can flip between being an action and being a connection line depending on the context.
Exactly. So let's look at their action mode first. When they operate as action chips, the energy flows outward from the subject.
Like I look at the monitor.
Yes. You are the subject, and you are actively performing the physical action of pointing your eyes at a screen. The energy goes out.
Okay, that makes total sense. But what happens when it flips into connection line mode?
The flow of data completely reverses.
Reverses.
Yeah, the characteristics of the object actually stream backward into the subject.
Oh, wow.
Think about the sentence. The code looks good.
Well, the code doesn't have eyes. The code isn't actively looking at anything. It can't execute an action.
Exactly.
Okay.
The English language evolved this incredibly efficient shortcut. Instead of saying something clunky like, I perceive the code to have good visual qualities.
Which sounds like a robot talking.
Right. Instead of that, we project our human perception onto the inanimate object. We use looks as a wire to send that visual data backward, directly to the subject.
So the word looks in that sentence isn't an action at all. It's really just a conduit mapping the status good onto the code.
Under the hood, it is still just a variation of our baseline equal sign.
So the code looks good is just code equals good, but with like a visual filter applied to it.
Exactly. It's a visual equal sign.
A visual equal sign. That's brilliant.
And by the exact same logic, the music sounds great is just an acoustic equal sign.
Music equals great.
Right, because the music isn't listening to anything. It's just the subject receiving the property of great through our acoustic hardware, our ears.
Sensor wires are really just perceptual filters added to that baseline equal sign.
That's the perfect way to phrase it.
And this actually explains one of the most frustrating, kind of mind-bending rules in English grammar.
Oh, the adjective versus adverb rule.
Yes. Beginners are always wondering when to use an adjective like good or nice versus an adverb like well or nicely.
It's a huge point of confusion.
It is. But if you realize that looks or smells is just a connection wire feeding data back to the subject, you know it absolutely must be an adjective. It never takes an adverb.
Let's actually break down why that is for the listeners. What does an adverb actually do in a system?
Well, an adverb describes how an action is performed, like he runs quickly. Quickly describes the kinetic action of running.
Right. So if you say the cake looks nicely, you are forcing an adverb into the slot. You are literally implying that the cake is performing the physical action of looking, And it's doing that action in a very polite, nice manner.
Which is absolutely terrifying, just a cake with eyes politely staring at me from the table.
It's completely absurd. And because there is no action actually happening, you simply cannot use an adverb. You must use an adjective to describe the noun itself.
The cake is nice, therefore the cake looks nice.
Exactly.
So taste would just be a culinary equal sign. This soup tastes salty. The soup isn't performing an action, it's just soup equals salty. And smell is an olfactory equal sign. The room smells fresh. This completely demystifies that whole adjective rule. You literally just have to ask yourself, is the subject performing an action outward, or is sensory data flowing backward to describe the subject?
It eliminates all the guesswork.
That's good.
If data is flowing backward to describe the subject, you plug in an adjective every single time.
Okay, this is amazing. So the pure equal sign works for static facts. The sensor wires work for a physical perception. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, because things still change. The weather doesn't just stay static forever, it shifts. People don't just stay calm, they lose their temper. When a subject is dynamically transitioning in a live environment, that basic be verb equal sign feels way too rigid.
You've hit on the exact limitation of the static equal sign. Because in a live environment, system states are rarely frozen. Things evolve, or sometimes they require active force just to stay exactly the same.
Right.
So for that, the sources introduce our third major upgrade to the motherboard, the state machine wires.
State machine wires. Okay, what does that actually mean in plain English for our listeners?
Think of them as state toggles or transition cables. They aren't kinetic actions that you perform with your body, but they manage property mapping during live events over time.
Okay.
And the sources break these down into two distinct branches. The first branch is all about state transition. That's change. Words like become, get, turn, and grow.
Okay, let's try to map that out. So if I say the server gets hot, the server isn't doing a physical action like running.
No.
But it's also not a static fact like the server is hot. It's a process.
Exactly. It's signaling that the system has transitioned from state A to state B. It's moving from normal to hot.
So the equal sign is being generated dynamically over a period of time.
Yes, dynamically generated. But ultimately, it is still just a wire connecting the subject server to the adjective hot.
Server becomes hot, the air becomes critical, the sky turns dark. They are all just equal signs in motion.
That's a great way to put it.
So if that first branch is about moving to a new state, what is the second branch of these state machine wires?
If the first branch is transition, the second branch is state maintenance. It's about a system lock.
System lock.
Yeah, resisting external interrupts to maintain the current state. The key words here are keep, remain, and stay.
Oh, I see. So if I'm, say, taking a really stressful test and I tell myself stay focused, I am actively resisting the urge to get distracted. I'm locking in that state.
Exactly. You are forcing the subject to hold its current equal sign. Or, if a company puts out a memo saying the server remains online, they are indicating that despite whatever external chaos or power outages are happening, the connection between server and online is firmly locked in place.
Wow. So whether they are transitioning to a new state with get or maintaining a current one with keep, their ultimate objective is completely identical.
Yep.
They just bridge the subject with a status property. At their core, they are still just connection lines.
They're just tools to map properties onto subjects, just with an added layer of time or resistance.
This makes so much sense. So we've laid out a lot of theoretical cables today. We've got the master blueprint.
We do.
But for you listening who is actively learning English, how do you actually apply this?
I think the best way to solidify this new architecture is to actually put it to the test.
I like that. Let's do a live debugging session.
Perfect.
Put a messy, beginner-style paragraph together, and we'll run it through our new connection line protocol.
Okay, let me think. Let's say I'm an English beginner and I'm trying to tell you a story about just a disastrous dinner party I hosted.
Okay, lay it on me.
I draft this paragraph. Last night, I make the dinner, but the stove get broken. The food smells terribly. My guests have become angry, but I keep calmly.
Oh, that is a perfect example of crossed wires. I mean, it's totally understandable, but the system is definitely crashing.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Let's take it piece by piece and debug it. First sentence, last night, I make the dinner.
Right away, we have that voltage conflict we talked about earlier. I'm trying to use the equal sign am and the action ship make in the exact same slot. You're splitting the listener's brain again.
Exactly. Since make is the actual action I performed, I just need to pull out the equal sign wire entirely. Fix. Last night, I made the dinner.
Spot on. Perfect. Next sentence. But the stove get broken?
Okay, get is a state transition wire. It shows the stove moving from working to broken, but since this happened last night, I just need to adjust the time register. Fix.
Huh.
But the stove got broken.
Nice. Now for the sensory one. This is a classic. The food smells terribly.
Ah, this is the cake with eyes
It
again.
is.
Smells is a sensor wire. The food doesn't have a nose. It is not actively performing the action of smelling in a terrible manner.
Thank goodness.
Right. It's just a conduit sending olfactory data back to the subject. And because it's a connection line, I must use an adjective, never an adverb. Fix. The food smelled terrible.
Exactly. Nailed it. Next up, my guests are become angry.
Another conflict here. R is a static pure equal sign. Become is a dynamic state transition wire. I definitely don't need both. I just want to show the transition of their mood. Fix.
My guests became angry. And the final sentence of your disastrous dinner.
Yeah.
But I keep calmly.
Okay, keep is a state maintenance wire. It's an equal sign resisting change. I am trying to hold the state of being calm. And because it's acting as an equal sign between me and my state, it needs an adjective, just like the sensor wires. Fix. But I kept calm.
Look at how clean that output is now. Last night, I made the dinner. But the stove got broken, the food smelled terrible, my guests became angry, but I kept calm.
It's so much better. When you look at language this way, it completely loses its terrifying ambiguity.
It really does.
It stops being this stressful guessing game of, does an adverb go here or an adjective, or why does this verb act weird?
You don't have to guess, you just trace the wire.
Yeah, is it an action or is it a connection?
It clears up so much mental space for a learner. You aren't just memorizing lists of exceptions from a textbook, you're understanding the underlying system logic of how human beings map the world around them.
You literally upgrade your grammar architecture. It's honestly incredibly empowering. You trust your new connection line protocols, and suddenly you can build ultra-stable sentences without second-guessing everything.
And honestly, it allows you to communicate with so much more confidence. When you know why a rule exists, like the adjective rule for sensor wires, you just stop hesitating every time you speak. It flows naturally.
Well, I want to formally congratulate you, the listener, on successfully upgrading your linguistic wiring today.
Yes, a very successful compile.
You now have the complete foundational blueprint for logical connection lines. But before we sign off, there is one final, really provocative thought from the source material that we definitely need to ponder.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the source material. It raises a fascinating question about the future of the English language.
Yeah, because we established earlier that human language evolved. Those sensor wires look, sound, smell, taste, feel, based directly on our physical biology, right?
Right. We created grammar to perfectly match our five senses.
But as we continue to integrate more and more deeply with technology, our actual perception of the world is changing.
Drastically. We spend half our lives in digital environments now.
Exactly. So how might our grammar connection lines adapt to that? Will we eventually develop entirely new sensory linking verbs for digital states?
It is wild to think about. Could we one day naturally say things like, the data sinks corrupted?
Oh, wow.
Because in that sentence, sinks isn't an action. It's acting as a completely new digital sensor wire, taking an adjective.
The data sinks corrupted. It totally works. It maps perfectly onto the blueprint we just built.
Or maybe things like, the stream buffer's choppy or the network feels latent. We might literally wire up new circuitry for the English language in real time as our technology evolves.
Language is really just a reflection of how we interface with reality.
That's all it is.
And if our reality becomes increasingly digital, our grammar connection lines are definitely going to adapt to describe that digital reality.
Without a doubt.
That is definitely something to mull over the next time you're, staring at a loading screen. Just remember to watch out for those crossed wires, trust your connection cables, and treat your next English conversation like a beautiful, clean engineering project. Wishing you a clean compile until our next deep dive.